We got Japanese. I'm fried. We got Japan anime taste compared to the West, from hunter to gamer.
When moving to Japan this past summer, I had a preconceived notion about the anime that would be advertised in Tokyo or talked about in my local countryside classroom setting. Yet to my surprise, some of the top anime that was airing in Japan were completely different from what I watched in the United States. More specifically, the anime boom of the 2010s created a subculture of primarily teens and young adults who in a way formed the consensus of what anime genres were culturally acceptable to like at the time. This is where the era of action-based shonens and seinens thrived, with shows like Naruto, One Punch Man, and Attack on Titan reigning over the other more relaxed slice-of-life shows at that time. However, over the years, the breadth of anime genres widely accepted by the mainstream Western anime community has grown to new levels to include a broader diversity of shows. With streaming sites like Netflix adding various anime catalogs to their collection, it gave Western fans the ability to watch some of Japan's favorite series legally, like Neon Genesis Evangelion and Monster. These two factors bridged a lot of the gap between the shows that Western and Eastern fans were watching and allowed for a unity between cultures. Or so I thought. Arriving in Japan, I expected to have conversations with my coworkers and students about popular shows that were airing in the United States, like Jujutsu Kaisen, Blue Lock, or even a show like Oshinoko. Yeah, I was shocked to learn that these shows were watched or read by a majority of people. When I would go into an anime-based store like Anime, the merchandise that was being sold was catering to both newer and older audiences of anime. It was weird to see just as much merchandise for a show that just aired compared to a manga that had been running since the mid-90s or early 2000s.
Wait, hold on. You were surprised that in Japan, that a new popular anime was getting proper treatment in stores? Like, that was surprising? The anime central place, you were surprised that a popular show had products on the shelves. Bro, when, like, how was that surprising? Is that not obvious? Like, I feel like I'm tripping. I feel like that's such an obvious thing to come to a conclusion that you would see. If I go to Japan, I'm going to see every different type of anime that I could buy, like in terms of manga, in terms of products. Like, I would think that's just how it's gonna be when I go there.
This curiosity set me out to find out firsthand what anime were popular with the Japanese public that differed from the Western anime culture's popular taste. One part I would like to include before starting: as much as I wanted to include a show like One Piece on the list, I couldn't with the show's crazy rise in popularity as of this past year in particular. Japan made me a One Piece fan, and I bought way too much One Piece merchandise at Universal Studios this past summer, but as much as I'm a fan of One Piece now, so has the West been, especially in the last few years. Anyways, on to the video. In my apartment in the Japanese countryside, I had only 10 television stations on my small Japanese TV. Yet it felt like 2 or 3 times a week I was seeing the iconic slam dunk intro of the Kamakura Beach on my TV screen. What really made this interesting was how old the anime was compared to...
But you gotta think, this is like just a difference in culture, right? Because in Japan, basketball isn't like as massive as it is in the West. Like, if you're a Western person and you watch Slam Dunk, you're probably not going to like it because, like, their basketball is completely different than how we would see basketball. And it's an older show. Like, it's based off of basketball damn near in the fucking 80s or 90s. So it's like, that makes sense. To me, this makes sense. I can see Slam Dunk being way more popular in Japan than the West. That just makes sense to me.
The time it was still being shown on television. Even Slam Dunk's manga sales for 2023 are insane, as it is currently the #6 most sold manga for this year, beating out manga like My Hero Academia and Tokyo Revengers. With Slam Dunk's manga inception being in the fall of 1990, the show came out only a few years later in 1993. Slam Dunk is one of Japan's most successful sports manga that follows Sakuragi Hanamichi and the Shohoku High School's basketball team as they compete against various high school basketball teams across Japan. One thing that makes Slam Dunk unique to sports manga is the ability to guide the reader into the game of basketball and not fully rely on the game itself to tell its story. Sakuragi himself doesn't even know how to play the game of basketball himself before joining the team, yet through the trials and tribulations he goes through during his time while being on the team, it makes the story really relatable.
See, and I'm not gonna lie, this is a good point though, because think about this, like at least for me, for when I watched Haiku, I knew nothing about volleyball, right? And I became a big volleyball fan because of Haiku. I learned through Haiku. So you got to put it in the opposite way for Japan and basketball. For a country that probably doesn't know a lot about basketball, like I can see why it's so popular compared to a country like America, who knows most people knows the rules of basketball. They know how basketball works. What'd you say, LJ? If your city wasn't close by a barrier and it became a battle royale where you could only throw hands, jumping allowed, how long do you think you will last? Bro, I live in Texas, bro. Where I can only throw hands. Oh, bro, I'm fried. I'm not gonna lie. I'm lasting like. Oh, jumping's allowed though. Like if I got all my friends, good damn, there's like 8 of us. We might be able to survive for a second. But like once we run into like a group a group of gym goers, like everyone is buff. We're probably cooked.
Especially
I don't know how
to
long
the
we're gonna
audience's
last,
main
though.
age demographic, being younger adults going through secondary school and beyond. Slam Dunk's popularity in Japan was something I had not expected at all, as students of every personality type were reading the manga or watching the anime adaptation when TV stations would play old reruns of the show at night. Coincidentally, I had a lot of my students ask if I had watched the show because of my love of basketball in America. Talking with members of the basketball team, Slam Dunk was a huge inspiration for them to learn how to play basketball and eventually joining the junior high school's team as well. This was even in a school nowhere near Kanagawa where the show was originally created, yet it still had such a pull on the student body. So why did Slam Dunk flop for some Western audiences, mainly in the United States? While the dub was actually never finished, with several dubbing studios failing to reach the show's conclusion, with the highest episode count only reaching to 83 out of the show's 101 episodes. Slam Dunk also had to compete with other shows being dubbed at the time, mainly being other shonens including the likes of Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, and even Sailor Moon. This meant that the show also never made it into Toonami's catalog, which gave a lot of US viewers their first look into anime, with a lot of these titles still being very popular today. Finally, and probably most importantly, basketball wasn't necessarily popular in Japan before Slam Dunk, and one thing its mangaka, Takahiko Inoue, does well is teaching the audience the game of basketball. This is why in the beginning, it may seem slow for Western readers, as the game needs to be learned by the audience before you can jump into any important tournament games. With basketball being extremely popular in the West already, the mangaka's attempt to make basketball cool may dissuade from further reading. Overall, I loved having Slam Dunk on my small Japanese TV, and living in Japan gave me a newfound respect for the show entirely. With sports manga like Haiku and Blue Lock succeeding domestically, it may be worth to go back and watch the pinnacle of sports anime, with that being Slam Dunk.
That makes sense though. I mean, like I said, it makes sense for Slam Dunk to be. It's like the same thing for Haiku. Like you gotta think, like Haiku is very popular in the West, and it's damn near for the same reason Slam Dunk is. It's like vice versa. I don't think that's I think that factors.
So I know what you're thinking.
Slice, I think DBZ is a factor, but I think the main reason is because, like, you know, basketball is just too big in America, and, you know, it's like an anime about basketball, you know, like you gotta be doing certain things like right for it to hit with a Western audience, you know, people that know the game, you know.
Thinking, is Spy Family not popular in the West? I've seen Anya everywhere online, your cosplayers in my feed 24/7. What's the big idea here? I think one thing that sets Spy Family apart in Japan versus the West is the fact that the show is loved by every age group within Japan, rather than the normal young adult age demographic.
Yeah, I don't know what about it. I don't know what it is with Spy X Family, but it is not it for me. I mean, I don't. Maybe it's like a difference in culture why Japan likes this anime so much compared to the like America and the Western. But I don't know. For me, this one is just it just does not hit for me.
Here in the West. Let me explain. I did plenty of activities for young Japanese students during my time in Japan, and let me tell you, every student from grades 1 to 9 knew specifically of Anya. You could put Anya on anything and the students would know exactly who she was, what power she had, and who her parents were. Whether it was convenience store foods, Boss Coffee, McDonald's...
You know what? I already know the difference. I know it. I figured out the difference already. It's because in America, right? Kids don't really watch anime, right? And I feel like anime is way more widely accepted in Japan. So kids like Spy X Family is probably like Coco Melon. Maybe not like Coco Melon, but like some type of childish cartoon that our kids watch in America. I'm not really tapped in, so I don't know a good example. But for Spy X Family, that's probably what it is for like us in America. Some iconic cartoon that kids watch, and like let's just call it SpongeBob, just for reference. Adults watch it, kids watch it. Everybody in America know what SpongeBob is. I feel like this is kind of what Spy X Family is, kind of what SpongeBob is in America. I think that's why it's different.
Burger King, basically anything they could put Anya on, they did.
Thought it was boring.
Take even adults as well.
See, you see my point though, LJ. Like, since you really didn't know about it, like, it was easier for you to get into. But, like, for people that know about basketball and already liked it, the anime probably just didn't hit it for them. Like, it didn't hit the spot for... And that's most people in the West, I like season 1 of Spy Family, but I got bored when watching the second season. It wasn't really going anywhere.
Well, who knew exactly who Anya was and would instantly recognize the show's main cast if tested. They would talk about how they watched the show with their kids and even at times on their own accord. Even when the show wasn't airing, it was playing on reruns every Friday night at 6 p.m. on my Japanese TV channel 101. That's how much I knew about this show while being there. So what makes Spy Family the ultimate show for all ages in Japan? Well, the show's premise follows a detective named Twilight, who has to form a fake family in order to spy on a political leader to stop a potential world war from happening. His eventual wife, Yor, also leads a second life as an assassin, and they adopt a daughter named Anya who can read their minds the whole time. The show's very lighthearted and wholesome at times as the characters go from not knowing each other to becoming a real loving family. This is the perfect anime for all ages and can only be rivaled by One Piece as a show that can be enjoyed by every age demographic. The show has little to no violence, the character struggles feel real, and not every episode follows the main plot point of the story, so having a random episode to play on your TV isn't the end of the world. I think this is one reason why the show fell off in the West from seasons 1 to 2, as the show's pacing slowed down considerably with the show's objective falling flat. Just like you said, Slice. As the show leaned away from the characters' initial personalities, the show transitioned along with the characters to show the growth that the family was having all together. I think this is why season 2 was so well received in Japan versus the United States, as there were better shows with ongoing stories that had more frequent payoffs than Spy Family did in the West. Still, the show is insanely popular in Japan, and the sales don't lie, as the manga was in the top 3 most sold manga in all of 2022 and in the top 7 currently for 2023. Spy Family really showed me that anime is consumed by all age groups in Japan and not just teens and beyond here in the West. Anya herself has become so ingrained in Japan's popular culture that I can see the manga.
It makes sense though, because like in America and in the West, like our kids don't watch anime; they watch cartoons. So versus in Japan, where they definitely probably watch anime. Growing up, they probably watch countless animes that are playing on TV and stuff like Spy X Family. So it makes sense though.
This one makes sense. Being a staple in every Japanese household for the foreseeable future. Can I say the same for Western homes? Probably not.
Definitely not. Kingdom.
For a manga and anime I didn't even hear about in the States, Kingdom is a seinen manga / anime that is widely loved in Japan, even with the manga reaching over 100 million total copies sold in its run. Since this was a seinen manga, usually my Japanese coworkers would make mention of the manga, as the tones throughout the story aren't necessarily best for the student's age demographic. Kingdom is mentioned in the same breath as mangas like Berserk and Vagabond, and is well praised by the Japanese community since the manga's inception in 2006. The anime followed a few later in 2012. However, the first season came out with a lot of backlash, specifically on the animation side of things.
Yeah.
Yet the manga held strong, still continuing on and even being in the top 10 most selling manga of 2023. Kingdom's setting is in the Warring States period of China.
I think the thing about Kingdom, you know, is it's kind of like Berserk, but if it kept going and only got better. Like, think if Berserk started out with the CGI and then went to the 1997 version and it just continued. Like, it would be popular, you know, it would be popular. So Kingdom is kind of like that, but like different. I don't know why it's not. I think why it's not so widely accepted in the West is because people can't get over the CGI. And like in Japan, they're probably more forgiving, especially when you already read the manga and you know how good it is. It's like you just want to watch the anime, you know. Especially since the bad part was in the beginning of the show, like you know it only
where
gets
seven
better.
states are constantly at war with each other. Shin is a boy who dreams of becoming a great general for the state of Qin. He joins the upcoming Prince of Qin, Sei, in order to help Sei fulfill his dream of unifying China and ending the 100-Year War. Soon, Shin and Sei will learn what it means to be a great leader and the brutality that their war and dream will bring. The anime for Kingdom wasn't necessarily able to portray the vision Yasuhisa Hara had written in the manga, as Studio Pierrot was criticized for the show's usage of CGI at the time. Furthermore, the anime skipped various arcs and character development early on within the show, upsetting fans, especially in the West, enough to drop the show entirely. But one thing I will say is that the anime is still continuing on to this day and has fixed a lot of issues that were occurring in the first season of the show's airing. So if you are a manga fan or are willing to stick with the show during its rough patches, then join the millions of Japanese fans in celebrating one of Japan's most successful manga franchises of all time. In closing, I think a major factor that plays between Western and Eastern anime taste comes down to the overall accessibility and the wide cultural acceptance of anime in the East. Anime in Japan has been a staple of television since the mid-1900s, while anime as a whole in the West had only really begun to spike in popularity in the late 2000s. This meant that the shows and manga which were successful in the late 90s had only a small chance to be brought to Western countries.
Yeah.
I think the age demographic of the audience for anime in Japan versus the West plays a key role, as younger audiences tend to grow up on anime from previous generations in Japan, while the West only saw some of that in the 90s and the 2000s. I do, however, think this will change in time. I plan on making a part 2 of this video, as there's more anime to talk about than the ones listed in this video, so if you have an anime that you think this fits the mold of, please leave it in the comments below, and it may make it into the next video. If you'd like to support the channel and my content creation journey, you can like or subscribe to see more video essays in the near future.
Good video, Hunter to Gamer. Great video. Great video. So you like the video? You'll like this one too. Go ahead and click on that. Yeah. You're still here? So you don't fuck with me? Alright, I'ma just